So I have been in tech for over 20 years. Originally in 2D, right? So designing websites and that sort of thing were really early in my career. I joined Microsoft about 11 or 12 years ago now, I can't remember. And I shipped a few things. I shipped Office 365. I did, some kind of 2D screen software product stuff, and I got really bored. I joined this team called the Startup Business Group. And when I did that, this is how my world started to look. So the Startup Business Group, I did a product called Fresh Paint, and it was 3D painting, but on a 2D screen. But it really got me interested in all these interactions and usability of all these things. And it was that point where tech and interaction was really, really changing. It wasn't just a mouse anymore. But also, suddenly Bill Gates came to the team and asked us to start working on robotics. And he wanted to build a robot for the home. Now, me, coming from a 2D background, building websites, was horrified, because, you think you have to be from MIT or something like that to be able to do such things. But I wasn't, and we started to do it. I have one in my basement. I always joke that I'm going to make it into a flower pot or something because it doesn't do anything. But I think that was my first kind of entryway into something that was so undefined. We started looking at scenarios and started looking at things, and honestly, they were so like, how does the robot do stairs, right? These basic things that you have in your house that you didn't know how to solve, and then you start looking at things from the perspective of, robots are creepy. Most people do not want a robot in their house. What is that? How are we getting people over that? So that was a huge project. It actually never actually proceeded, but I got recruited into a project that was unknown at that point. You guys probably can start guessing what that was. This is some of the work that I'm only allowed to. This is the only parts of the robot. I don't know how I have one in my basement in a box right now. Like, I'm not sure how they're allowing me, because this is all Microsoft is allowing me to show from the robot base. But I took a job. They said it was super cool. I didn't know what it was. And I ended up in what you call HoloLens now today. So this is 8+ years ago. I'm not allowed to say how many years as well. But I took the job, didn't know what it was, ended up in this basement, and I had a helmet on with these hot cords running down my back and some guy with a cart with a bunch of computers, and I was seeing holograms. And so some of the first holograms that I saw was like a book, and it was Jack and the Beanstalk, and it was beautiful. It was a little bit of a game where aliens were coming out of the walls. And I thought, oh my God, what is this thing? What are we going to do with this? It was interesting because a lot of the people that came into the product for HoloLens were from gaming. So they were from Kinect. So quickly, we were defining it. I was the only traditional UX designer on the team at that time. We started defining it as a consumer thing, right? We didn't even know. We were talking about going grocery shopping or driving with it, because this is all we had was this crazy thing. We didn't know the final form factor. And that's just something that I think is really interesting, is that how do you design for something that you don't even know what the end product is going to look like? I really fought against the consumer part. I didn't want it. I didn't think that someone was going to pay that amount of money to use a HoloLens device. Also, it was really scary, because I was a 2D designer, and suddenly I was in a 3D world. And this is one of my fellow designers, and I think she puts it best, but we all felt like we were literally in the driver's seat, and we had no idea how to drive the car, right? We were like, what is this 3D thing in environments? And I think that's where the game aspect came into, really my growth and understanding was, all about environments now. Anyway, so we, slowly but surely, suddenly I only had a backpack on and a big helmet. Suddenly then we only had we called it the feed bag. I don't know if that sounds very good, but it was around our neck and this weird thing on our head. And then slowly but surely we could see what it was. But slowly but surely our scenarios went for this gaming thing, right? So my first thing that I worked on was Skype, right? So it was we called it Magic Window back in the day, because I could be on my laptop and I could be drawing holograms into your world. That was the first thing that we saw. We did a kind of tiny little prototype. It's I wonder what would happen if I took a laptop and took this thing that wasn't a HoloLens yet and see what happens. And so we called it Magic Window over and over, and then we started thinking scenarios and brainstorming, and it came out that, well, this could be super useful. If I'm on a Skype call and I'm drawing into someone's world, I could be telling them how to do contextually into their world, right? Because we're environmentally mapping and all that good stuff. So that is now a product. A plus Pereira is a product called Remote Assist, and now we've shifted everything that we're looking at with HoloLens. There's no more consumer-based things; it's all enterprise, which definitely helps gain the scenarios that we need. And there's so many now; like it's just so easy to create. I'm going to show you one video on HoloLens, and then a video what I'm working on. We can talk about that a little bit. I don't know how to flip over the Chrome. Command tab.
It's probably right behind.
And so, I don't know if you know, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I'm going to say it, we just shipped HoloLens 2, so now it's actually shipping to our customers as of like maybe 3 weeks ago, so that's really exciting for us as the ones that are developing product. It was a little scary for a while, we're like, oh my god, everything depends on us. But it's one of the most amazing things that I've worked on in the sense of how many components are, even from a hardware perspective. Not only was I designing for the experiences that you were going to have on the device, but I was actually helping inform the device. And we're talking like I'd be talking to people all over the world on a weekly basis trying to figure out what was going on and what the tech would be that we would be designing for. So that's another interesting thing that kind of happened with it. But this is now the HoloLens 2. So some of the really cool things with it now is that my scenarios have increased, right? It's so much lighter. When I was talking about, an operator or somebody in a factory wearing it for an hour, I can talk about, 5 to 6 battery life. The FOV's gotten bigger. I'm not designing for a tiny space, which was so tremendously hard. There's just so many things that open up. But again, the challenges of tech. So HoloLens 2, we literally were in the basement. I was back in the basement of 92, and I spent way too much time in a basement in the last 8 years. But we were doing press events, and we literally had 2 devices, and they would crash every 5 minutes, right? We didn't know what they were going to do because we were still prototyping with them and doing all these things, and the intensity of these situations with this tech, and you were trying to show off our product, you were trying to show off how amazing it's going to be because it is, and it's those constant things of challenges of feeding around those things. So anyway, go back a little bit. 2 years ago, I moved back home to Canada about 4 years ago. 2 years ago, Edo, one of our leaders in Vancouver for Microsoft, absolutely amazing, brought Dynamics 365 guides up to Vancouver. So we're actually developing that whole product in Vancouver, which is really amazing. So I had the opportunity to go back and start working on HoloLens. So what it is it's heads-up, hands-free instructions, step by step in the world for training and assembly for operators. So I'm going to show you that video. Yeah, look at me. I got this. No problem. Someone started watching. Where are you?
Work today is more complicated than ever. The old ways of training cannot get new employees up to speed as fast as the experienced people are retiring. We need a better way forward. Introducing Dynamics 365 guides. Simple step-by-step instructions are easily written on a PC, and then holographic parts and icons are simply picked up and placed on the machine where the work is happening. From day one, employees are often expected to get work done, but the complexity can be overwhelming. Now, employees can learn by doing. This is a tool that works with existing processes, allowing a manager to get the right guys to their people. The instructions move with the employees, pointing them to the tools and parts they need, showing them exactly where they need to apply them. Employees get up to speed faster, with fewer errors, and more confidence. A simple glance moves them through the instructions, meaning their hands are free to do the work. They can learn at their own pace without having to rely on other workers around them. The overall experience is comfortable and intuitive. For the first time, a manager can see detailed information about how the employees are working and how their skills are growing. This makes continuous improvement faster than ever before. All of this helps employees make the complex simple, so they can learn and adapt faster, and organizations can stay competitive.
So that's what I'm currently working on now, and I'm sure as you're looking at all that holographic UI, it's been very challenging. And so one thing that I'll just mention before we get into the discussion of everything is what we've been doing to solve the problems of understanding these spaces. I didn't know anything about a factory 2 years ago, right? And suddenly now I'm going to these small towns in middle America and doing the ethnography and the understanding of these spaces. Because I can remember the first time I went into one of those spaces, it just went, holy crap, everything's moving. It's so loud. Everything I designed for uses sound, right? Now to direct you to that hologram or whatever, they're not going to be able to hear them. So just how important that real world environment is to what we're designing for, and and then how to solve for it, like with the tether and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.